For my project, I decided to build a table. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is go online and find the style of table that you want. Then you're going to want to write down all of the materials that you're going to need. After that, you're going to write down all the steps that you're going to be following. All these steps are really important because this makes it a lot easier when you're going to the store and you're picking out your materials and when you're building it later. So once you've written down your list of materials, go to the store and buy those materials. For my table, I wanted to do a two-tiered mid-century modern style, so these are all of the materials that I got. I brought them home, unpackaged them, and laid them out and counted them just to make sure I had everything I needed. But unfortunately, the man at Home Depot was incompetent and he did not cut my wood correctly. So I had to saw it myself, which was terrible and time-consuming, so I absolutely do not recommend doing that. But once you have all your wood properly cut, you're going to want to use a sander and sand everything down. This is really important, especially if you're going to be staining it. So I used an electric sander, which is so much easier than just using regular sandpaper. That would take absolutely forever. I picked out my stain at the store, brought it home, and I shook it up a little bit. I just started painting it on all of the pieces of wood. It's important to go with the grain when you're staining it, and definitely put on gloves while you're doing this and put a drop cloth down because it gets incredibly messy. I used cheesecloth to spread the stain all over my pieces of wood. This was the circles after the first coat, and then this was the pieces for the mini shelves and the legs after the first coat. You're going to want to wait a few hours before applying the second coat. Then, after that, you want to drill all your pieces together, but before, you want to make sure that everything is lined up. So I lined that up and made sure I liked how it looked. Then I started drilling holes in my pieces of wood because I needed something called pocket holes, which is when you drill a hole on an angle into the piece of wood and then you put the screw in afterwards. This is when you're trying to join two pieces of wood together and you can't just join at a 90-degree angle. But something that I found really helpful was watching other YouTube tutorials on how to do this. And I had some scrap wood because of the incompetent man at Home Depot, so I used that to practice. And once I finished drilling all of the holes into the pieces of wood that were going to be the shelves, I started drilling holes into the circles of wood that were going to make up the top and bottom of the table. So first I had a long piece that was about 24 inches that I laid across the top of the table, and then I screwed those into the holes that I had set earlier. This is what it looked like. This is sort of like a cross section of what the inside of the table looked like. Then I lined up the top part of the table on top of it. You want to be really careful when you're doing this. To make sure that it's not lopsided, and because you want to make sure that when you're screwing down from the top table that it lines up with the side pieces in the middle, otherwise it's going to have nothing to be connected to. And of course the final step to building a table is attaching the legs. You could make the legs on your own, but I decided to make it a little bit easier on myself and I bought the legs pre-cut, sanded, shaped from the store. I wanted mine to be angled a little bit outwards instead of just being straight down, so I bought angled leg table braces. I positioned those on the table and then screwed them in, and this is what the final product looks like. An extra step that you could do to preserve the wood is to put a polyurethane coating on top. That would make it look a little glossy and it kind of seals the stain in, but this is what the table looks like. I put it in my room, put my vinyl on it, a little plant, and that is how you build a table.